Hey, third and fourth grade, this is Mrs. Took, and I'm here with you guys to start our next session of art online learning. Today, what we're going to be doing is a drawing. We know that we're still kind of getting into the hang of things, so we're just going to start off with a drawing prompt, and I'm going to draw with you guys. So what you're going to need today is paper and a pencil. If you haven't already gotten that out. And then if you have things that you could color with, you can go ahead and grab those, whether that's crayons, colored pencils, markers. I'm going to be using some markers and colored pencils, but totally up to you. If you do have paint and those types of things and you want to use those, you can, but remember that you're going to need to use a heavier type of paper if you're going to be painting on this piece of paper. Going back to some things that we already know, let's talk about the elements of art. Okay, we know there's line, shape, form, space, color, value, and texture. Okay, what we are going to be focusing on today, as we're just kind of practicing again, getting back into the hang of things, I want you to really be thinking about line, shape, form. If you're using color, then color. If you are not using color and you just have pencils at home, remember that you can use value and shade with your pencil to still add some dimension to your drawing, okay? And we're also going to be focusing on texture. Depending on how slow you go or how quickly you draw, I know that everybody's a little different, you will want to use space. We are towards the end of the year. We've learned about each of these things, and so we need to be thinking about them as we are drawing, okay? Now, like I said, we're going to be doing a drawing prompt. What we are doing today is a funny one that me and Miss L found. We are going to be doing a cactus inside a milkshake. Again, we know that we're just kind of getting back into the hang of things, so we thought something fun to start us off would be a good way to go. So cactus inside a milkshake. So this is why we need to remember these things. Line A, we're using lines to draw, okay? We are using our pencils to create lines. While we are using those, we need to be thinking about what kinds of shapes we are creating. And remember, a form is when we take shape and make it look three-dimensional. So this circle is a shape. But if we take a circle and we add shading with value, okay, then we can kind of start to make it look like a sphere instead of a circle, okay? Space is where those exist in space. So if I add space to my circle, my sphere, now we can maybe add like some kind of light source. Now we know that this circle is a sphere that exists in some type of space. Maybe it's on top of a table. Okay, you understand where I'm going with this? All right, so be thinking about that. That's something that you can get to if you have enough time today. And then value and color. So we're being mindful of the things that we're using. Things can go from light to medium to dark, okay? If we have a good value range, we're gonna have light, medium, and dark in everything that we create. And lastly, with texture, we're really gonna be using texture on our cactus, okay? So you may draw whatever type of cactus you would like. I know that sometimes there's cacti that look like they're that kind of shape, and then they have other shapes kind of coming off of them. There's the fun cacti that kind of are a bunch of U's that go on top of each other. I think I might do that type of cacti, and they usually have like little flowers on top, those different types of things. And then if you're adding color, when you do your milkshake, you can use whatever colors you would like to show what your favorite flavor of milkshake is. So again, this is a fun prompt that we're gonna be doing today, but we still need to be mindful of the things that we've learned and how we're going to take those things and use them here. So that being said, I'm gonna take this out of the way. And now I have my piece of paper, okay? I am going to be doing mine horizontally or landscape, but if you'd prefer to do yours vertically or portrait style, that is totally okay. Like I said, I think I'm going to do the kind of fun loopy type of cactus, but whatever type of cactus you want to use is up to you. Remember, you are on a computer, so if you want to take me and put me on one side of your screen and then open up a new window for another screen with pictures of different cacti, that is totally allowed because it's your computer. So what we're doing right now, I'm gonna go ahead and start with the cactus because it's inside. So I'm gonna do the cactus first, and then I'm gonna build my milkshake around it. But again, totally up to you. Okay, so what we're first going to start out on, I think I am going to do mine portrait mode, so you can see I'm doing portrait or vertical. All right, cacti and milkshakes are more vertically oriented. They don't usually go sideways. You don't leave your milkshake sideways. It's standing up tall, so that's why I'm doing mine this way. But depending on what kind of space you want to put yours in, you could do it horizontally if that's what you choose to do. I'm going to do my cactus in a little potted type figure. Okay, so I'm going to make a little pot. That's my pot top. So this is a, it's going to be kind of a cylindrical shape. We're going to make a cylinder type shape with our pot and with our milkshake. But little pots and milkshakes usually get skinnier at the end. So I've got the top of my pot, you know, those like terracotta ones. Maybe your parents have that orangey color pot with plants in it, maybe in the backyard or on the patio or the balcony if you live in an apartment. That's what we have. Okay, so I've got the basic shape of my pot here, and now I want to start adding where my cactus is going to be. So I'm going to erase the back of that little pot for where the start of my cactus is going to go. So I'm going to do that kind of upside down U shape. It's almost an ellipse. It's just not closed at the bottom. And then I'm going to do kind of some lines down here to make it look like dirt, okay? And then I'm going to start adding my shapes for the rest of my cactus. So you can see I'm just adding more of those little U shapes or the little ellipse without the bottoms. I'm doing mine in pencil first, and then I'm going to go over it with a black marker. If your parents let you use Sharpie, you can use that. I'm just going to use a black Crayola marker, but you don't even have to do that. You can totally color these without outlining them first. I'm just going to do that. I'm going to make mine kind of look graphic. If you aren't using color, then it's going to be a really great reminder for you on how to use shading. Okay, so I've got the kind of basic outline of my cactus here. Okay, so if you are shading today because you are using a pencil, this is where you would want to start kind of adding some value and some details. So just an example, remember, I'm going to go ahead and start us off on this little terracotta pot so you can see what I mean, because I know some of you might need a reminder on what shading looks like. Okay, so let's imagine that the sun is over here. It's at the top of our paper and the sunlight is coming this way towards our object. Okay, so that means that this side is going to be more in shadow. So I'm just gently laying in color, haha, I'm using my pencil, but I'm laying in value on this side. So I start off kind of light because it's much easier to make it darker. It's not that easy to make it lighter if you accidentally go too dark. So I'm kind of using some like hatching type lines or some gestural lines to make mine. And then I'm going over it again in that corner to make it darker. So I would do this across my whole paper, making things a darker value where I wanted them to be darker, and then making them a lighter value where I wanted them to be lighter. So that's where the sun would be closer to, okay? Now, I am going to be adding color to mine, so I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to leave it for those of you that are going to be adding value, and then when I go to add color to mine, I'll just kind of but this is where we want to kind of start adding maybe some more details. I'm going to put a flower right here and right here on mine. If you are using a different type of cactus, maybe look up what kinds of flowers would be on those types of cactuses. This is a good way to do research. If you need a reminder on how to spell cactus, you can spell it out, but just in case, it's C-A-C-T-U-S. So you look up different types of cactus flowers if you want. Cactus flowers are usually kind of these flat pink little things. They come up just a little bit. They remind me of plants that you see like in the ocean. If you've seen Finding Nemo or anything like that, that is what they remind me of, but they're really cute. So I'm a big fan. Okay, I'm going to start off with those two flowers, and then no matter what kind of cactus you're using, they're going to have some kinds of lines. So I don't want mine to be perfectly straight, but see how they're wrapping a certain way. They're kind of wrapping around that shape. That is what we do to make things look more like a form instead of a shape. So that's why we don't use perfectly straight lines. They kind of wrap around like a basketball or a baseball. The lines on a basketball or a baseball show what shape they are. if you have one at home, I do recommend looking at one of those. Okay, so I've got some of those lines on there. And then when I go back in with marker, I'm gonna go ahead and show you right now, just this part, the little spikes on those, I'm gonna do a bunch of little V's on my little lines to show my spikes, but I'm gonna stop right there because we want to make our milkshake, okay? So this is all going to be existing inside our milkshake cup, okay? So I'm gonna start with the bottom of my milkshake cup because we know the bottom of our cactus has to be inside the bottom of our milkshake cup. So I'm going to start there, and then I'm going to come up, and these lines are going to make a cylindrical type shape as if one side of it was squished at the bottom. So the same way that any ellipse is like a squished circle, we're squishing the bottom of a cylinder so that it's skinnier at the bottom than it is at the top. If you have a cup at home, I know living in Wiley, a lot of us have those big yellow Dickies cups in our cabinets. The bottom of them are thinner and the top, they have a wider opening, okay? So it's like a squished cylinder, so that means our lines aren't going to be perfectly vertical. They're gonna go out a little bit to be diagonal. And then we're gonna add some curved lines at the top for the top of our cup, okay? Now, I'm going to close mine and add a straw in a little bit, but right now we can stick with that basic shape. Now, if you could perfectly see through this cup, if it was empty, we'd also have lines going back behind here, but we're gonna fill this up with some kind of milkshake, so we don't need to draw lines in there because we're gonna have milkshake in there. We're gonna just be able to see our cactus, okay? So I'm gonna kind of draw some lines that look like, you know, like I've got a really lumpy milkshake going on in here. My milkshake is definitely going to be brown. I love chocolate. I am 100% anti-vanilla. I don't think anyone should eat vanilla because chocolate is the best, my personal opinion. So I've got my cactus there and my milkshake. I'm going to erase these letters. Hopefully if you need them, you can just rewind. That's another good point. Remember that as long as we are doing these videos, you can pause and rewind as much as you need to. So if I'm going too fast for you, you can pause and rewind. If I'm going too slow, you can speed me up. That's the beauty of this online learning so far. So I have some of that basic information laid out. Now I want a lid on top of my cup. I don't know about you, but I am pretty clumsy. So I am going to put a lid on top of my milkshake. So I'm going to start off with the lines that would just be on the side of that lid. And then the lid would go up a little bit taller than our cup. So I'm going to wrap it around. Those lines should kind of match the ones we have before. They're curved, so parallel wouldn't really be the right word, but as if they were parallel. They need to match the angles at each point, okay? Now we're going to wrap the top of the lid around here because the lid acts as kind of a lip to your cup. So I'm going to add that curve all the way around. Covers up my cute little flower, but that's okay. There we go. Nice. And then there usually would be kind of a rim on the inside. And then a lot of them have those like circles on top for fast food places to say like, this was strawberry, this is vanilla, all that kind of business. And then they have a little X in the middle. Now this won't be a perfect X because we're viewing this milkshake from the side. It would only be a perfect X if we were looking at it from up top, like if we were staring down at our milkshake, okay? But we're not, so it's gonna be a smushed X because of the perspective that we're using. And I'm gonna add a straw that comes out. Now these lines need to be parallel to each other, but they don't need to be perfectly vertical. Okay, and then I'm just gonna add an opening right there, okay? And then I need to put a base of my straw coming out of that X. So anything of the straw that covers up the X, if there's any X that's inside the straw, you're gonna end up erasing that, okay? You can't really see mine, so I'm not worried about it. Okay, so now we have all of our basic information laid in. I'm going to put like a line, I want it to be a little bit higher. See, so just a reminder, it is okay to not get things right the first time. I've erased a couple of times, not a big deal, right? Okay, now I'm gonna add a line in here. However you're doing yours, if you want yours to be existing in space, you can put a line somewhere for the top of a table or wherever you would like, okay? So I'm gonna put one right there. I think I might write some words here later, so I'm gonna leave it. Okay, at this point, I have the basic part of my drawing done. So if I were going to keep doing shading for my whole thing, I would be using this technique to add value. Remember, we'd want lights, mediums, and really darks to be on each of ours, okay? You want to have value range, so practice getting lights, mediums, and darks in with that. But if you are not shading today, because you're gonna be using colored pencils or crayons or anything like that, then you can stay tuned. At this point, you can pause the video and go finish your drawing. But if you would like to color with me, then you are absolutely allowed to let the video keep playing, and I am down to color with you. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is outline mine. You did not have to do this at all whatsoever, but I like it. It just makes things look crisp if I'm doing kind of a fun graphic drawing. Wouldn't recommend this all the time. It depends on kind of what you're doing. My own art that I make and sell, some of mine is more stark graphic with a lot of contrast, and those ones I usually outline, but some of them I want them to be more like subtle and gentle, so I don't use harsh outlines. Everything's like pencil and light watercolors and those types of things. So you just want to think about what you're doing. But for my fun little drawing, I do want to outline. And after you outline, if you have any stray pencil marks that you want to get rid of, you can. I'm not super worried about mine. Okay, so with my lid here, I'm going to outline these main lines, but not worry about doing too many. And remember, you wouldn't be able to see through your straw most of the time, so make sure to pick up your marker so you don't draw that line behind your straw. In fact, if it's easier for you, just go ahead and outline your straw so that you don't get confused. There we go. Okay, so then you see the bottom of my straw, and then you see that X going through there. See the back of my lid. And then kind of, I'm not going to do full circles for those, just kind of half little things that kind of show what they are without making them super there and obvious for us. Okay, I'm going to go over these little milkshake clump lines. Notice I'm not trying to make it perfect. You don't have to do everything super, super perfectly. I know a lot of people that they want everything to be perfect so badly that they never get it done because they, focus too much on that aspect, and it's better to have things finished than to have them perfect. Of course, we want to do things right the first time, but don't let being too detail-oriented keep you from getting things done, because that's not helpful for anybody, is it? Then you wouldn't have your awesome drawing. So I try to make sure to do things slowly and right the first time, but don't worry too much about getting them too perfect. But this is also a good note of why we do things in pencil first. I erased a lot of things, and that's totally okay. It's okay to erase. But if I had done this in marker right away, I wouldn't have had that opportunity to get to erase things that I wanted to erase. On your flowers, if you did flowers, be gentle and be careful not to add too much marker, because sometimes what happens when we go in with a marker that's thicker than our pencil, we add too much detail and then it's all black, which can make you sad if you wanted it to be yellow or red or pink or blue or some other color. So you just want to be careful with it. So my flower, you're going to be able to kind of see it through there. You shouldn't be able to see the whole thing perfectly. Notice I'm adding my lines, not making them too perfect. This one I'm going to, because I already did those little V marks, and I want those to be in the right place. If you're a pretty advanced artist, I would think about line variety. So that's making sure you have thin lines and thick lines. So notice the outside line of my cactus is kind of thick, but then the inside lines of my cactus are pretty thin. Having line variety really helps you out, kind of how value range, you have lights, mediums, and darks. Line variety, having thick and thins, it's just good for your art, makes it look more dynamic. It's more visually interesting. Our eyes are more drawn to it. we go, got those baby lines on there. There we go. Looks like my marker work is done. So any stray lines that I have with my pencil that I want to get rid of, I'm gonna go ahead and do. At home, you might wanna wait a couple minutes, like take a chance to go to the bathroom or something. Some markers, when you erase your pencil lines after, the marker ink might still be kind of wet, even though it feels dry, and then it smudges, and that just makes everybody sad. So I'm going through and doing the lines that I did first. I'm gonna do my cactus lines last because I just did those with the marker, so that ink is probably pretty fresh. There we go. Yeah, so mine aren't smudging, so that's good. There we go. I got most of mine. If there's any I didn't get, that's okay because I'm going to color. All right. There we go. You can use whatever kind of coloring utensils you would like. I am going to be using some colored pencils. The materials I brought home, I was able to get some from school. I brought home Crayola markers, Crayola crayons, and then some Crazart colored pencils. You can get most of these things at Walmart or Kroger. So if your parents are going grocery shopping to Walmart or Kroger, they might be able to pick some of these up while they're there. So all of these things are available there. I think that if you shop at Tom Thumb, they also have them at Tom Thumb. Maybe smaller selection, but they are available. So you can try it out. Okay, I'm gonna start off with my little terracotta colored pot. So I'm gonna take a couple colors of orange, and then I think I'm gonna grab like a maroon color. So I definitely always recommend layering your colored pencil. If you have a colored pencil box that's smaller, I would definitely just choose multiple colors, okay? And do those together. So maybe you could do warm colors together or cool colors together, up to you. But we want to remember that when we are using colored pencils or crayons or really any technique of adding color to something, you want to use small strokes, not big ones. You want to stay in one isolated little area and branch out from there. Because when we go like this, that does not look good, doesn't help anybody. So I do small motions that are tight. That's what my kindergartners say. They say that they're tight together. There's no gaps in them. And then if you see gaps, you can kind of go back over those. This terracotta color will be fun. It'll kind of stick out from our milkshake color, whatever you do. If you like strawberry, doing a strawberry milkshake would look cool. Really bright pink and red and stuff like that. You can do little, you could do the main color pink and then add a bunch of red little specks that are like blended up strawberries. Okay, so thinking about value range, like I said earlier, to our friends that are shading theirs, instead of using color, you want to add more shadow around the edges, and especially the ones that are further away from the light bulb or the sun or whatever kind of light you're imagining is in your picture. I'm pretending that the sun or something is from this corner. I'm going to go ahead and do this side. I have Crazart colored pencils here, but I actually prefer the Crayola ones. If you're a lucky pal and you have Prismacolors, then that's awesome, but for economic options, I recommend Crayola over Crazart. But if Crazart's what you can get your hands on, those will do just fine. This is what we had at school that was quick for me to grab, so that's what I grabbed. There we go. So I'm kind of leaving some room down here for me to color in my dirt because I definitely want my cactus to have some soil to live in. And I'm adding this other color. I don't know if it shows up on camera, but in real life, it just makes it look so much nicer. It adds some complexity of color to it. It just looks so much better. And adding a second layer of color helps to kind of fill in all those tiny, tiny white little gaps that are left. And notice that when you go in with the second color, it doesn't take as long as the first color because you've already colored the majority of it. All right, then I'm going to go back in with this darker color. This one's called Red Umber. So umber, I think, is a type of woodsy color. So I'm just adding kind of some shadow lines down to the bottom. I'm kind of having to press pretty hard to get them to show up. I don't know if they'll show up on camera, but it looks nice. I'm liking it. I'm going to do the same thing right here. So that rim would be in shadow, and then probably right along the inner lip there, because that edge would block the sun or the light from getting to it. Nice. Okay. Then I'm going to go in with a brown color. Oh, this is deep raspberry. What color is this actually going to be? Oh, that works. It's going to be a reddish soil, but that's okay. So this one I'm kind of using circular motions. Soil is very organic and lumpy, and sometimes it's smart to use kind of more organic motions to get the realistic color for, or the realistic color and texture for soil and things like that. So I'm using circular motions because soil is lumpy, and we'll probably do the same thing with our milkshake later. Soil's not as dark as I would like. Let's see if I have a different brown in here. Maybe they were hiding in the corner of the package. I do have some. There we go. It's nicer. I'll probably use this one for my milkshake. All right, I'm gonna set those aside. And then I'm going to go ahead and start with my cactus. I'm going to use this color, some of this one, some of that one, and some of this one. I'm going to do the cactus part before I get to the flowers. I think I'm going to start with some areas with this really light one. So the areas that would be touching kind of the sunlight or that light source, whatever it is, I'm going to do that. But first, I need to add my spikes still before I go in with my colored pencil. So you want to add some that are coming off the cactus. There's little V's. There we go. It's starting to look real cactusy, real prickly. I'll do some that are on the edge and some that are on the face. Remember, they should be kind of smaller on these smaller ones, right? There we go. Now we got all of our cactus spikes. So the faces that would be touching light, so if our light's coming from here, then this spot, all the cactuses would have kind of like a highlight where it hits. There might be a shadow under that flower. We'll kind of come to that point when we get to it, won't we? Of course, in reality, if there's actually a cactus inside of a milkshake, the light wouldn't be getting to any of it. We probably wouldn't be able to see the cactus. But, you know, this is pretend a little bit, and that is a-okay. So now I'm adding this kind of medium green color to the rest of the cactus, the parts that I have not colored yet. Remember to keep it tight. Even if you use bigger motions, you want to keep it tight so that there's not gaps. My arm is starting to hurt. If yours starts to hurt, you can definitely take a break and come back to it. This is also something if you have siblings that aren't in elementary school, you could invite them to do this with you. Like even if it's a middle school or high school student, you can invite them to do this with you. If you have younger siblings that are doing different lessons because they're in a younger grade or they're not in elementary school yet, you could still invite them to sit with you and do this. They'd probably like being invited to do that. I have a little sister, and she definitely would have liked me inviting her to do this with me when we were your age. Okay, so now we're focusing on the same thing that we did down here, adding dimension by going around the edges and adding darker colors. This green's really bright, vibrant green. I'm digging it, but it's darker than that limey green that we used. So the spaces that are further away from the sun, we want to hit those. I'm gonna kind of go on some of my lines here. Because those lines are ridges in the cactus, so I'm adding line. Because those would have shadow. There we go. I have one more that's even darker. This one's called celery. Celery's not a dark green, so I don't know why they named it this. Celery is a really light, watery green. We should call them. Why'd you name this celery? Doesn't make any sense. Of course, if you want to make your cactus a bunch of wacky colors, you can totally do that. Like a blue cactus would be super cool. Up to you. Cool. Those are my cactus colors. So I'm going to set my greens aside, and I'm going to get out I think cactus flowers in real life are normally these pinky colors, so I'm going to stick with these. If you want to make yours a different color, then by all means, go for it. I recommend always starting with the lightest color. Another thing to note, if you are doing a strawberry milkshake, you won't want your flowers to be pink because your milkshake's going to be pink, so you wouldn't be able to see your flowers. And then I'm going to just add this color right across the whole thing. And you can add this. Oop, broke my pencil. Along the bottom. There we go. Okay, so we have our cactus part completed. Woohoo! Now we just need to finish our milkshake and then the space around it. So for my milkshake lid, I think I'm going to take a light blue. Sometimes when you draw like plastic or glass that's clear, you'd maybe use grays, blues, up to you. I'm going to use this light blue color to kind of shade those edges. And we'll keep the rest kind of clear. So I'm not coloring the whole thing. I just want to create some sense of like shadows inside that clear cup. And then the rest of this top part might end up being brown or vanilla, whatever color you choose to use for your milkshake, if it's almost full, you know. And get along the edges and then kind of fade it out so it's not just this weird blue line. There we go. And then for my straw, if this was from Starbucks, it would be a dark green. I think, I'm trying to think of other places. Sonic's are usually red. I'm trying to think of where my favorite shakes are. Chick-fil-A has good shakes. Whataburger has really good shakes. I don't know if theirs are orange or not. That would match that though, so I'm gonna do that. But yours can be whatever color. But that's what I'm going to do for my straw. I like that because it kind of helps balance that terracotta color that we made. We're keeping it tight. Then inside your straw, inside there, that will be darker. So I'm going to go in with a brown or something to darken that part up. So it'd be a shadow in there because it's enclosed. It's harder for light to get in. And really, there's probably going to be some shadow down here along this edge because the light's coming from this way. There we go on that part. I think for my milkshake, I'm trying to decide how high I want it to be, or if I want it to just be inside the whole thing. I think I am, because I already drew these little clumpy lines too. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna start at the bottom and work my way up. I'm gonna testing out, yeah, I like that color. Some of the browns that you might have might be really reddish. So I'll just check them before you use them if you're also doing chocolate. Kind of doing this base part with straighter lines, and then I'm going to add some of those curly lines to kind of give it that lumpy milkshakey texture. And I think I'm going to go ahead and start doing that now. So things that you want to be smooth, like maybe the terracotta or the straw, you want to keep those straight lines, but if something's going to be multi, then you can change up your line texture, and that will change the texture of your drawing. One thing that you might be wondering, pencil sharpeners, I know that they do sell those inexpensively at the grocery stores as well, in the same areas that you would get colored pencils. I got mine on Amazon. It's X-Acto brand, and Amazon always has it 50% off, I think, and I really, really like it. A lot of teachers use it. It's a really great pencil sharpener. A lot of people don't recommend using electric pencil sharpeners with colored pencils. That's usually just in a school setting because there's so many and so many different people using it. But I think for having it at home, it's totally fine. I have had it at school all year and it's been great. Haven't had any issues. So I definitely recommend that for sure. So I'm going to go in and do all of this color with this curly texture. And then I'll probably go back in next to these lumpy lines that I drew and add some darker values. Remember, we've got some gaps, so you want to keep going over those. You could get really creative with it. Like if you go to Sonic or Dairy Queen, they have all those like blasts and stuff that they blend up different types of candy. You could draw candy chunks in yours. My husband would definitely be doing that. He's a candy fiend. I'm more into chocolate than I am candy. I'm gonna go ahead and sharpen my pencil. Much better. We're pretty lucky. We went to Half Price Books shortly before all of this started and loaded up on books. So we have a lot to read around here, which we're excited about. If there's one thing I recommend you guys do, it is read while you're home. I know it's really easy to kind of get sucked into TV. A lot of the time I watch a lot of like Netflix and stuff like that, but I actually haven't watched any Netflix at all the last 3 days. I'm trying not to do that too much. I definitely recommend reading. It doesn't like, I mean, definitely do your assignments for class and all of that for sure. But in your downtime, when you're able to do kind of whatever it is that you want to do, definitely be reading books. If you don't have a lot of books at home, there are books online that you could find. Ask your parents to help you. Totally recommend doing that. All right, so I've got that. I'm gonna start adding some darker kind of marks next to those lines. And I'll probably do that on the edge of my cup as well. I'm adding a shadow underneath this cup. This side would be darker if the sun is over here as a light source. If you want, you can kind of add some evidence of your milkshake at the top through that clear lid. I'm just doing curly lines up there. Okay, now I think I'm gonna take another brown color. Let's see what we've got. I'm gonna take this one and kind of just add So again, when you're doing the second color, you can kind of go a little bit quicker because you are just filling in white gaps that are barely there. When you're doing the first one, you have to be a lot more meticulous. This is kind of making mine look more like a really rich color. So I've kept that kind of texture from the first layer of colored pencil. This one's just kind of altering the color a little bit. There we go. I think I'm gonna do this section pink right here to kind of pull out from those flowers as well. And then the background, like the wall or whatever it is that this is, I think I might do just a different shade of pink. So maybe a really rich, vibrant pink and then maybe a pale pink. However, I don't want you guys to have to watch me do all of that. So what I'm gonna do is do some writing right here. And then I will post my completed one later and maybe show it to you guys at the beginning of our next video or something like that. But what we have here is a cactus and a milkshake. I'm gonna just do some lettering here. Cactus, C-A-C-T-U-S, cactus, in a milkshake. Got it all to fit. There we go. Cactus in a milkshake. Woohoo! Awesome. Thank you so much, you guys. Don't forget to sign your work, all of you little artists, okay? I like it. I hope you had a good time and enjoyed it doing our first little lesson here. I would love to see yours if we get to see each other again. Either way, I will see you guys in one of our next lessons. Be prepared, and we're gonna have a lot more drawings and a few other things going on for you guys. But keep at it. I'm excited to get to talk to you guys soon. Bye.